the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today I'm going to talk to you about practicing. How we practice, why we practice, when should we practice, how long should we practice for. I'm going to answer all of those questions that you might have about practicing, and hopefully give you a few little hints and tips on what you should actually practice and that sort of thing. So I think I'm actually going to split the video up into two sections. I'm going to talk about practicing for beginner students of any instrument, piano, violin, flute, clarinet, you name it, whatever. And I'm also going to talk about more advanced practicing, because the way that one would practice as a beginner would be completely different to the way that someone would practice at a more advanced level. So why do we need to practice? Well, obviously we need to practice to get better at things, and also to digest the kind of things that we've learned. Music is very subconscious as well, so the more you do something, the more subconscious it's going to be. Therefore, the less you think about it, and the better you're going to get at something. So for most of my beginner students, to help them practice, I quite often make up little practice charts for them. So this would be something that they would do if they were perhaps doing their scales. So I've put across here, I've put in this column here what it is that they have to do: C major, G major, all that kind of thing. What they have to do, how many times through, and then the day. So for this particular student here, their lesson was on a Wednesday, so that's why I've started it at Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what they would do is on Wednesday, they would start with C major scale, play it through 6 times. Once they've done that, tick the box. The next thing they would do is G major, play it through 6 times, tick the box. And then D major, 6 times, tick the box, and so on. And then what I also do is get a parent or something just to sign at the bottom of each day. So I don't do it, the parent does it, just to kind of make sure that they're happy with the progress as well. So this is really good for me to see if a student is practicing, for the student to actually see what they physically have to do as well. So if I've written it down for them and I've set it out and they've done it, then they're not going to get in trouble next week for not doing something they haven't done, or whatever. So and also the parent can see what's happening as well. So it's another good thing for me to see, because if a student in theory has come along and ticked every single box and done exactly what they should have done every single day of the week, and they still can't do it, then I know that there's a bigger problem there, and that's when I need to sit down and kind of find out with a student and see what's going on there. Perhaps there's a bigger problem or something. But that's actually never happened. This is, whenever I've given this to students and they've done it religiously, it's always worked 100%. So this is really good as well. And some students need something like this as well. It's the same as I like to write lists about things that I need to do, otherwise I tend to have too many things and I forget what's going on. So it's like writing lists or having diaries. If you like that sort of thing, and you like to kind of tick things off if you've done them, then this is a great structure for you to practice as well. If I'm doing the pieces, then I will do something like this for them. So this piece, so it's the same thing. So I've written along here what it is that they need to practice, and then the days of the week there. But this one here, for example, they're playing Morning Has Broken. I'll get them to play the first line through 4 times, then the second line through 4 times, the third line through 4 times, and then the first, the second, the third line 4 times, and so on and so on. So that's a really good way of building up your practicing, especially if you're at a beginner level as well. So rather than just playing your piece again and again and again and again, which really isn't going to achieve much, if anything at all, you're better off focusing your practicing, especially at beginner level, by say playing the first bar 4 times through, the first line 4 times through, then the second line 4 times through, and then the first and the second line both together 4 times through, and then the third line 4 times through, fourth line 4 times through, third and fourth line 4 times through, and then put the lines 1 to 4, or 4 times through. So you're building up the practicing, and it's becoming more like repetition than anything else, rather than playing it start to finish, because you're never really addressing the problems enough by doing it that way. So how long should you practice as a beginner? Well, it's a very difficult question. I get asked all the time, how long is a piece of string? Really, I suppose if you are a beginner, it would really depend on how old you are, your concentration, how much time you've got available, what it actually is that you're practicing. But I suppose anywhere, if you want me to put a definitive time on it, then anywhere between, say, half an hour to an hour if you're very kind of beginner. However, I would say a practice session should be, you practice and you do not stop until you've achieved something. So what you want to do is, say you've been practicing for an hour, that you can sort of sit back and go, wow, I'm actually much better now at 3 o'clock than when I started practicing at 2 o'clock. So you've actually achieved something within that hour, and that's when you know that you've done enough practice. So you need to be achieving something. If you've just played it through once or twice, forget it, you might as well not bother. You need to be, it's repetition, so you need to be playing something more. And I'll say to students, right, tell me exactly how you practiced this week, and they'll say to me, oh, I played it through once or twice, and I'll say, okay, so you've just played it through once in the lesson, has that got better? No. So you can't call that practice then, can you? So playing it through just once isn't practice at all. It's enough to keep it ticking over, but it's certainly not enough to practice. And because playing it from start to finish does get really boring, break it down into lines and interweave it and all that kind of thing, and write it out in kind of this sort of format so that you can tick when you've done the first line, tick when you've done the second, so you can see exactly what it is that you're doing there. Also with practicing, I'd say it's little and often as well, especially if you're at a beginner level, because you're not going to have the concentration levels of somebody who's more advanced or somebody who's been playing it for 10, 15, 20 odd years. So a little and often, as you quite often find that the brain can't take in too much information. That's why I don't give lessons longer than 60 minutes or an hour's worth of lesson, because otherwise it's too much information. I'm giving out too much information for A, the brain to take in, and for B, the brain to go away and actually practice it. So little and often, and you'll find that, you know, maybe if you keep chugging away at it for maybe a day or so, nothing's happening, and then overnight you'll go back to it on the third or fourth day and boom, it would all have clicked into place and it will all make sense. And that's a really good cycle to get into as well, especially when you're good at something, you practice it. So after you've practiced it, you get better at it, and because you're better at it, you want to keep practicing more, and then as a result of the more practice, you're getting better, and because you're getting better, you're practicing. So that's a really, really good kind of efficient cycle to get into. So that's that for beginner levels. That's how I help my students practice. So I'm going to go on to advanced practicing now. So I'm kind of one for believing in meticulous and diligent practicing. My old music teacher, who taught me right from the age of 4, Mr. John Roper, brilliant music teacher, he never let anything slip through the net. It was always perfection. He always used to tell me to practice more. I never practiced enough. I wish I'd have practiced more. Everybody says that, but he would never let anything slip through the net, and he would always make me go over bars and play them again and again and again and again until I was sick of it, and then he'd make me play it one more for luck, just so that he could sleep at night. And I remember that he used to say that to me, and then I carry that on and I say that to all my students as well. So I'm one for subconscious practicing as well. So because everything is subconscious, I believe that you do need to go over bars again, 50 to 100 times until you are sick of it, because it is the only way it will go in the brain, to the point where you're actually playing it back and you think, oh, I didn't even know I played that bit. And that's when you know you've nailed it. When you're not even playing it without a thought, you've got it. But at the point where you have to think about it, so on the violin, when I have to think about which order my fingers are going in and what string they're going on, I haven't got it. I need to do it 50 to 100 times before I've nailed it. The same with the piano. Perhaps I don't know where to jump to, or you know, or the order of the notes or the fingering or something. I'm going to play that passage for 50 to 100 times until it sinks in and it becomes subconscious. It's a little bit like if you can drive a car. Have you ever been driving along and perhaps not realised that you've gone kind of 2 miles down the road and you've not even thought about, you know, 10 minutes ago you were back there and now you're where you are and you can't even remember getting there, because you're sort of driving subconsciously. It's you're aware of what's going on, but it is more subconscious. So it's a very similar process to that. So if I was going to practice something, I tend to pick out a particular passage. So when you get more advanced, it's less about playing it line by line and bar by bar and all that kind of thing. You'll be able to play the majority of it, I would say, but there might just be one or two really kind of awkward, irritating, tricky bits that you're then going to actually have to focus on. By the time you get to that level anyway, you will be at the level of using common sense and being able to practice in this kind of method as well. But I just thought it would be helpful if I just share my thoughts on how I practice as well, you know, because I'm still learning new pieces all the time. You know, as I like to challenge myself and try and, you know, play as much as I can and all that kind of thing. So if I was, I'm just going to actually demonstrate something on the violin. I'm playing Paganini's Caprice number 24 in A minor at the moment. So I've only just sort of got the music to this and I haven't been playing it very long, but it's the one that goes... So I'm just practically sight reading this. I haven't played it much, I haven't played it much at the moment anyway, so there's a few bits in there that I need to work on. But for example, the second bit, which is quite tricky, it kind of gets harder and harder. So if I was, let me just kind of go through and practice, or go through a few bits on how I would practice this, and you can see perhaps how I adopt this. So there's some intonation issues going on there because I'm not quite sure what the notes are. Even for me, I'm not quite sure where they are on the violin yet. So this is all part of practicing. So I haven't learned this, everybody, if you're just wondering why it is so terrible, it's just because I'm learning a new piece of music. I don't know every single piece of music in the world, but I thought this would be brilliant because I can't play this at the moment, so I'm practicing. So I thought this would be perfect for me to kind of air my practicing laundry for you on camera so that you can see how awful, how truly awful my playing is. But hopefully you might be able to see maybe sort of in a few minutes time how much better I actually am at it. So there's a few intonation problems here. So the first bar, I'm just going to take the first bar for example. So I just took the first bar there, I've got an A minor arpeggio, but I also did that going backwards as well, so I could just get the idea of it. So instead of me just playing that bar over and over again, to really secure my fingers going in the right place, what I tend to do is just kind of mess around with the fingering, kind of mess around with the notes. So it helps it to sink in my brain a little bit more. So I really am reaffirming that. And whilst I'm doing that, I can also work out that, you know, my fourth finger isn't stretched enough. So I'm learning the distance between my third finger and my fourth finger so that I don't undercut my fourth finger and make that out of tune. So once I was kind of relatively happy with that bar, I'd move on to the next bar. Messing about with those two bars, and I would probably sit here and I would do maybe I might do probably those 4 bars, but I would probably sit and do those 4 bars for maybe half an hour. So 4 bars, which is 2, 4, 6, well, apart from the last bar, which is just an octave E, 6 beats for half an hour. And that's what I would do. And you know, that's not even tackling anywhere near the majority of the piece. But that's what I need to do because the music is so advanced, my practice time goes up, my practice level goes up, because my ability's gone up as well. So I do apologise for my terribly awful playing of this, but I am just starting to kind of look at this at the moment. But this hopefully gives you an idea of exactly how I would go about and practice. So I'm just changing the bars about, changing the notes, just so that when I come to put it together, I get the intonation correct. I can learn the distance between my fingers on the violin as well, and then hopefully get rid of lots of other kind of incorrections that I'm making. So I'm starting off playing it really, really slow, just so I can get the feel of the music, get the feel of where my fingers need to go, and then I would probably just practice it bar by bar, or maybe just the bits that I need to practice. And I would say that bar particularly is quite difficult because I'm having to stretch a third finger, and then I'm having to move my third finger back immediately. But I'm having to keep my third finger down on the string whilst changing another string. So that's quite an awkward thing to do. So that I need to learn to get my head around. So again, I might spend another half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour just practicing those 4 bars, or well, those 2 bars, because the 2 bars after that repeat. And again, you know, so before you know it, I kind of spent 2-3 hours, and I haven't even gone past the first page yet. But if that's what I need to do to practice, then that's what I need to do. But don't forget though, initially when you start out, it's going to be quite laborious, it's going to be quite boring, and it's going to be quite arduous and hard work. However, the longer if you put that time in to start with, I'm not going to be spending 20 minutes, half an hour on the first 4 bars of Caprice 24, because I'm going to have nailed those first 4 bars of Caprice 24, and then I'll just be able to play it. So my practice time will get smaller and smaller and smaller for this. But initially, to start with, this is what I would needing to be doing. So how long should you practice when you're advanced? Well, as much as possible. I mean, you could easily just spend an hour working on one page of music, especially if you're starting out, depending on how technically difficult it is. But really, your practice, you should be at that level where you should know best anyway. So your practice session does not finish until you feel that you've accomplished something, or you know, I'm a much better now an hour on than I was when I first started an hour ago, that sort of thing. And also, little and often, I sometimes find that, you know, maybe after 20 minutes of doing an A minor arpeggio and I don't know, some kind of diminished arpeggio for 4 beats, that I'm starting to get a bit tired and a bit frustrated. So I'll get up, go downstairs, make a cup of tea, come back up again, and have another go at it. And quite often I find that, you know, just by going downstairs and having a break after half an hour of playing 4 beats through, that I have actually got it, I've nailed it, and the practice has actually worked. So I generally find that if you're a beginner, it will take you a few days before your practice kicks in. If you're advanced, you'll probably find that happening very, very quickly. You'll probably find it happening in a matter of hours, or after one practice session, or literally overnight. You'll think it hasn't gone in, but you'll wake up the next day, boom, you've nailed it. Don't know how you've done it, but that's how the practicing works. So I'm very much a stickler for absolute perfection. This is how I teach. If it's not right, don't bother doing it at all. But also repetitive. I believe in sort of doing everything 50 to 100 times to get it absolutely perfect. Do not move on until you have nailed it and you've got it perfect. Otherwise, you'll end up just leaving so many stones unturned, and the whole thing will end up kind of being a bit sloppy. Once you finish the whole piece, you won't want to go back and kind of tidy up those little bits. So if you do them as you're going along, it just makes it far easier to do. So I think that's everything I need to mention in terms of practicing. I hope some of you have found this video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you like my videos and want to see me do some more videos. And I'll catch you all next time.